year, new you, right? Actually, maybe. Let's talk about what the science says about our ability to change and how this can help you with your own personal goals, regardless of what month we're in. I'm Jennell Elias, and I help couples with high-demand lives avoid feeling like distant roommates, restore intimacy, and build growth that actually lasts. Depending on what side you're on, the new year is either an exciting time promising a fresh start, or it's just another Thursday because New Year's resolutions are dumb and nobody ever sticks to them anyway. But psychologists have spent decades studying how people actually change, and they've broken it down into a few main stages. First, we have the sleeper stage. This is where we are blissfully unaware that anything even needs to change, or if there's some awareness of a need for change, it doesn't feel like a real problem. We feel like, I'm fine, everything's fine, they're just exaggerating. Or maybe even, this kind of problem is nearly impossible to fix for someone like me, so there's no point in even trying. In order to graduate from this stage and be able to move on to the next one, the biggest thing here is just becoming aware that something needs to change or realizing that change is possible. You don't need to know exactly what or how to do that, just the fact that change is somehow needed. Once we are aware that some kind of change is needed, we enter into the awakening stage. This is where we realize something needs to change, but we're still wrapping our heads around it. The awareness is there, but we haven't fully decided to take action just yet. We're weighing the pros and cons, debating it in our heads, and overall just thinking about it. This stage is also where a lot of the excuses come in. Yeah, it needs to improve, but I'm not ready, or any other excuse. To graduate from this stage, we'll have to move from considering making a change to the solid decision that we're going to make that change. We don't have to know how just yet, but we do need to decide. Another way to put it, we become mentally and emotionally ready to take action. Once we're like, okay, I've decided, I'm going to make a change, then we enter into the ready, set stage. This is when we realize we feel ready to make a change, but we don't actually know what to do or how to do it. So we start planning. We do some research. We look at our calendars to set aside the time, or we reach out to local instructors to find out how much classes are going to cost, or we start putting together meal plan ideas for that new diet, etc. It's not about starting to implement yet. It's about preparing to do so. To graduate from this stage, we have to reach a point where we say, okay, that's enough planning for now, or I'll figure out the rest along the way, and we actually start doing. Once we've started taking action and implementing changes, we are finally in the go stage. This is the only stage of the 4 that I've mentioned so far that involves any real behavior changes. Of course, this is the stage that everybody likes because it feels like we're motivated, we're doing. Nothing can stop us now. And even if we fail, we're gonna try. On that note, during the go stage, we might absolutely experience setbacks, especially if we're trying to make very drastic changes or do something we've never done before. It will be very important during this stage that we reach out for social support and build in small wins throughout the process to help us stay motivated along the way. An important part of the go stage of change is not just to remove unwanted behaviors, but to find acceptable replacements to put in their place. Otherwise, it will be much harder to keep the changes up long term. This stage is complete when we're able to slow down some of that extra effort required at the beginning, either because we've made the necessary change we're looking for, or because it has become habit now and we no longer have to put as much active thought, planning, and effort to keep it up. Or because we gave up altogether and just settled back into our old patterns. Once the effort levels, then we've entered into our new normal stage. If we reached our goal, this stage shifts focus from trying to accomplish to trying to maintain. We might start getting a little comfy and give ourselves a few too many breaks in the new routine, or start experiencing some of the old cravings again. Maybe some of our old friends start inviting us back into those old habits or routines that would lead to the previous behavior. Whatever the case, the battle here is about finding ways to turn the changes we made into our new normal, rather than a temporary thing we only did while we were feeling so motivated during that previous go stage. Some experts believe we basically stay in this stage indefinitely until it either becomes a new permanent change or we relapse into old patterns and start the cycle of change all over again. Others say this is just a temporary stage and that we graduate when the change becomes permanent. The difference feels to me like a you say tomato, I say tomato thing, so I'll leave it up to you to decide where you stand on that last point. I want to include a note about relapse, or going back into our old habits and behaviors. It is extremely important to treat moments like that like just pure data about what worked well and what didn't work in order to try again. It's just information, not failure. Just part of the process. So much so that it is built into the cycle of change. It happens. Scraping our knees is part of the learning process, not a sign that we failed and we should just quit. Remember that the real failure is if we stop trying altogether. Now, if you'll notice, out of the 5, maybe 6 stages of change, most of them involve taking very little to no action at all. If most of our behavior changes only occur in this small percentage of the entire change model, then it's no wonder people are constantly getting frustrated that change is so hard, or it never sticks, or nobody wants to do the work anymore. I really hope this helps to normalize that most of the time we're not being lazy. We're just not ready to take action yet. We weren't at that stage of the change cycle at that moment. So how do we get to the stage where we're actually making changes? It starts with gaining awareness of where we are in the cycle, then focusing on what we need to do to graduate from our current stage. If we're not even aware that any changes are needed, is some self-reflection due in order to find some areas for improvement? Perhaps asking trusted friends or family. If we're stuck in the ready set stage, still planning and preparing to make a move, maybe set a deadline or a marker of when we're going to take that leap and start implementing the plan, even if we don't feel like we've got it all figured out. The phrase analysis paralysis describes that feeling when you get stuck looking at all of your options and trying to make the very best, most foolproof plan that you sacrifice action for the sake of staying in the ready set stage as long as it takes for you to really feel ready to go. The truth is that there is no perfect plan. We will never feel ready enough. So let's shift from a perfectionist mindset to striving for good enough. Or even, I'll figure the rest out as I go. But push yourself to take what you've gathered so far and just start. What does this have to do with relationships? Well, seeing as sometimes it's harder for us to be aware of our own need for progress, but very easy to see where others need to improve, especially our significant others, I would say the first takeaway is do some self-evaluation. Where are you in these stages of change? What is it going to take to move ourselves to that next one? Let's spend more time trying to become better partners and less time trying to change our partners. The second takeaway is that I hope this has shed some light into what our partners might be going through when we're seeing them from our third-person point of view, seemingly stuck, never changing, and either unmotivated to make any changes or improvements at all, or forever saying, yeah, I'll get to it, I will. But time passes and we see that nothing happens. As partners, I want us to realize that the fault does not lie in laziness or not being motivated enough, or even if he wanted to, he would. Though there is some truth to that in some cases. What really comes down to is that most people by default are simply not in the stage of change that involves taking action. They're not changing because they're not ready. And we can try to help them with that, but we can't shove anyone into the go stage for their own good, no matter how much we may want to help. In fact, when we try to push someone into action before they're ready, it tends to backfire and make them even less likely to want to do anything, even if it's killing them. Things we can do includes modeling the kind of changes we'd like to see so they witness firsthand that it is possible. Thus the famous quote reminding us to be the change we want to see in the world. We could talk to our partners about what kind of barriers they might be experiencing that are getting in the way of making changes, listening with care and empathy rather than judgment and blame, and helping them break down these barriers into tiny micro steps that makes overcoming them much easier. For example, I figured out that for me, getting to the gym to exercise was not working for me. I was just not sticking to it. Between finding the time in my schedule, arranging for childcare for the kids, or finding a gym that included childcare, which was usually farther away and more expensive, setting aside the recurring budget for the gym membership, buying workout clothes if I didn't already have them, getting in the car and fighting off traffic to get there, feeling like a fool in front of other more fit people working out around me, etc., I would easily lose motivation and just drop out or not even start to begin with. So I started removing barriers. What if I worked out at home by just jogging around my neighborhood for cardio and doing body weight exercises in my living room or following along with a training video on YouTube? No childcare? What if I did exercises that included holding my baby safely instead of using dumbbells? Or what if I took my 5-year-old jogging with me and it became a mother-daughter bonding activity as well? No workout clothes. If I was home, I could literally work out in my pajamas if I felt like it. On and on it went until I finally found a process that worked for me, that felt easy to me to stick to because there weren't a lot of barriers getting in my way. Of course, I know that what I found that worked for me won't work for the next person, but the example remains the same. Is there a change you want to make? Find a way to break it down to such a tiny step that the barriers either disappear or feel way easier to overcome. We can worry about adding difficulty as we go achieving even the smallest of successes. Start with good enough and get to ideal later. I hope this helps instill a little bit of compassion for our significant others and for ourselves when we're getting frustrated that changes seem to be so hard to make and stick to. Stop and think about what stage of change we might currently be at and what it will take to move on to the next level, rather than beating ourselves up for not being at that ideal state just yet. And have lots of patience for yourself, friend. Change is not linear. We take steps forward, stumble backwards, all of it along the way. As long as we get back up and keep making progress, however small, it is good enough. If you have any questions, submit them at the link in this episode's description at the bottom, or come to my lives to ask there. And don't forget to subscribe so you'll know when that next live happens. Meantime, you've got this. Talk again soon.